Shabbat Shalom again, Israel. Okay, again, my name is PASSOVER, and I'm still into the same topic, basically. Okay, about the Passover, and I'm going to be reading from Exodus, the 12th chapter, and I want to try to bring out a little better understanding on this whole thing between the two evenings. Okay, I'm going to be reading the book of Shemot, or the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter, the 6th verse. And it says, "You shall keep it until the 14th." We're talking about the Passover lamb. "You should keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole congregation, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening." Now, in Hebrew, now that says between the two evenings. Now, I've been hearing a whole lot of conversation amongst a lot of brothers. What is their understanding when the scripture says between the two evenings? I've heard breakdowns where between the two evenings means from the 14th nighttime and right before you get to, okay, the 15th nighttime, before the beginning of the next day, because we know that the time runs from evening to evening. But after the evening hours now, you're falling into now the nighttime hours of the next day. So again, I've heard brothers break it down that between the two evenings now is talking about a 24-hour span that you have this time to kill the lamb. I'm going to say it again now, because if we think a little bit, okay, while we're saying some of the things that we're saying, maybe it'll clear up a lot of controversy that's going on. There are some brothers that are saying now is that these lambs were being killed, okay, in this order, okay, for almost 24 hours. Lambs were being killed, or better yet, 23 hours. The lamb is being killed because you need time, okay, to prepare the lamb. But again, we have to make sure that we read and try to understand the scriptures from a Hebraic perspective. When we say evening to evening, we have to understand now that the scriptures also tells us now that there's 12 hours in a day. If there's 12 hours in a day, obviously now there's 12 hours in the night. We have to look at the scriptures from a Hebraic perspective. I said some things in my last series, okay, what it means about between the evenings. I'm going to read it again. On the book of Shemot, the 12th chapter, the 6th verse. "And you should keep it," which is the lamb, "up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel should kill it in the evening." Now, we've been taught in this Western Gentile society, okay, and what we have to do is we have to understand, just like the scripture says, we cannot put new wine in old bottles. What we have to do now is get rid of the whole bottle, start afresh, because we become new creatures in the Messiah. And with becoming new creatures in the Messiah, we have to put away all of this old doctrine that we've been learning, all of it. Now, 12 o'clock, okay, noon, isn't the best way to describe what's happening at 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock is even. The sun and the earth is even, okay? But we've been taught, okay, that 12 o'clock noon at 12 o'clock p.m. After the daylight hours, because the daylight hours usually begin at 6 o'clock in the morning. So 6 o'clock in the morning, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and at 12 o'clock we say 12 o'clock noon. But to keep everything in its Hebraic perspective, the best way to call 12 o'clock would be 12 o'clock even, because everything is now even. The sun is at its highest point at 12 o'clock. Anything after 12 o'clock, we're now finding ourselves falling into the evening hours. Because out of the word evening, you get the word even. And the sun is at its highest point at 12 o'clock. The sun is at its lowest point at 6 o'clock. So between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, you have 3 o'clock. That's what it means about between the evenings. And we have to also have to understand about watches. There were nighttime watches and there were morning observance of the time. For example, when we say the third hour, what comes to mind based on the Greco-Roman perspective on the way that we were taught when we say the third hour? A lot of us would say that the third hour is 3 o'clock p.m., but not according to Hebrew time. The third hour, daylight hours being observed, would be 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock in the morning, that would be the third hour. Another example, the next third hour, okay, would be the actual 6th hour. And if you was to ask a person, okay, that goes to school, that's comfortable with understanding, which is understanding this whole Greco-Roman perspective, if I was to say the 6th hour, what comes to mind? Probably with a lot of us, 6 o'clock p.m., but not from a Hebraic perspective. The sixth hour would be 12 o'clock p.m. All right, but 12 o'clock is actually the highest point of the sun, because remember, the sun and the moon is also giving us information on how to tell time. So the sun is at its highest point at 12 o'clock p.m. The sun is at its lowest point, okay, is now going over the horizon, is at its lowest point at 6 o'clock p.m. Now, the ninth hour. The ninth hour, from a Greco-Roman perspective, a lot of us might say, okay then, the ninth hour is 9 o'clock p.m., but not from a Hebraic perspective. The ninth hour would be, okay, 3 o'clock p.m., which is the exact time when the Messiah gave up the Spirit. And obviously now, the 12th hour, because there's 12 hours in a day, the 12th hour would be, okay, when the sun finally goes down at 6 o'clock. So the 12th hour would not be 12 o'clock p.m., but the 12th hour would be 6 o'clock. So this is how we tell time from a Hebraic perspective. So now when I read the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter, the 6th verse, where it says, and you should keep it up until the 14th at the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel should kill it in the evening. Anytime after 12, okay, because 12 o'clock is the highest point of the sun. Anything after 12 o'clock, you're now falling into the evening hours. And what word do you get, or do we get, out of the word evening? You get the word even out of the word evening. And even is when the sun is at its highest point, which is 12 o'clock p.m. Now, let's prove all things through the scriptures. Deuteronomy 16 and 6. Deuteronomy 16 and 6. History and culture is going to be the key to helping us understand the scripture. I can't say that enough. Understanding history, culture is going to be very important in helping us to understand the scripture. Now, let's see here. Again, the book of Devarim was the book of Deuteronomy 16 and 6. But at the place, okay, which the Most High, thy Father, shall choose to place his name in. And we know that the place where the Most High chose to place his name at is in Jerusalem, okay, Jerusalem. And as the scriptures tells us also in Deuteronomy 16 and 16, 3 times a year must all males report to the Lord. This place where the Messiah placed his name at is in Jerusalem. But at the place where the Most High should choose to place his name, there shalt thou sacrifice the Passover. The Passover is the lamb at even. Even is 12 o'clock. Okay, it's very important for us to understand that. And what we also have to put into consideration too now is that from 12 o'clock okay, which is the 6th hour, and 3 o'clock, which is the ninth hour, there was darkness upon the earth. Darkness. That's very important for us to understand because there's no coincidences here. So between the evening is 3 o'clock because it tells us when we understand the scripture. 12 o'clock is even, and between the even, the Messiah said it is finished. What did it mean where it said that it is finished? By 3 o'clock p.m., all the lambs should be finished being slaughtered. By 3 o'clock. Because remember, the lamb has to be roasted, okay, because nothing is being done on the 15th nighttime hours. On the 15th nighttime hours, what we're doing now is that we're eating the unleavened bread along with the lamb. We should not be cooking lamb on the 15th nighttime hours. So again, the importance of 3 o'clock p.m. is that the Messiah said, all right, it is finished. The Messiah gave up the spirit. The Messiah was that lamb. And from 12 o'clock, even at the sun's highest point, was the beginning of the even. Anything after 12, you're falling into the evening hours, and the Messiah gave up the spirit at the 9th hour. Now, thou shalt sacrifice the Passover at even at the going down of the sun. When does the sun go down? The sun begins to go down, all right, after 12 o'clock. After 12 o'clock, because you're now falling into the evening hours. 12 o'clock is even. 1 minute after 12, 1 second after 12, the sun is now declining, okay? And you're now into the evening hours. 1 o'clock is the evening hour, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, until the sun finally goes down, and you're now into the nighttime hours of the next day. Okay? If anybody has any questions regarding my breakdown on between the two evenings, leave a message, and I can go into a lot more detail in explaining this. Okay? And with that, I say Shabbat Shalom, Yasha Allah.